Chapter 1. The Isolated Manor. The rain fell in relentless sheets, drumming against the windows of the train as it rattled through the sodden English countryside. Hercule Poirot, immaculate despite the damp, adjusted his perfectly waxed moustache and cast a sidelong glance at his companion, Captain Arthur Hastings. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice carrying that familiar cadence of precise enunciation, "you are fidgeting again. It is most distracting to the little grey cells." Hastings, caught in the act of tapping his foot, gave a sheepish grin. "Sorry, old chap. It's just this blasted weather. And this invitation, rather queer, don't you think? A weekend at a manor we've never heard of from a fellow you barely know." Poirot's green eyes twinkled with amusement. "Queer, you say? Non, Hastings. It is intriguing. Sir Reginald Ashford is a man of considerable wealth, and, I am told, peculiar habits. His letter spoke of a matter requiring my unique perspective. That, mon cher, is sufficient to pique the interest of Hercule Poirot." The train slowed, and through the mist the silhouette of Ashford Manor emerged. A sprawling Elizabethan structure, its gables and chimneys looming like spectres against the storm-darkened sky. The station, little more than a platform and a sagging roof, was deserted save for a dour-faced driver who ushered them into a waiting motor-car. The journey to the manor was silent, the driver offering no pleasantries. Hastings peered out at the blurred landscape. "Feels like we're driving to the edge of the world," he muttered. "Perhaps," Poirot replied, "but even at the edge of the world there is order to be found." The car halted before the manor's imposing oak doors. A butler, gaunt and pale as a wraith, greeted them with a stiff bow. "Mr. Poirot, Captain Hastings, Sir Reginald awaits you in the drawing-room." Inside, the manor was a labyrinth of dark wood panelling and flickering gas lamps. The air carried the scent of old books and wax polish, tinged with something less definable. Tension, perhaps. The drawing-room was grand, its walls adorned with portraits of stern-faced Ashfords glaring down at the new arrivals. Sir Reginald Ashford, a wiry man with a shock of white hair and eyes that darted like a fox's, rose to greet them. "Mr. Poirot, Captain Hastings, you honour us with your presence. I trust the journey was not too arduous." "Pas du tout," Poirot said smoothly, though his eyes scanned the room with surgical precision. "The weather, it is but a minor inconvenience." Hastings, less diplomatic, shook out his damp coat. "Beastly rain. Hope you've got a fire going somewhere." Sir Reginald chuckled, but it was a strange sound. "Oh, we shall keep you comfortable, Captain. But first, allow me to explain why I've summoned you." Before he could continue, the butler reappeared, his face even paler. "Sir Reginald, a telegram has arrived. Most urgent." Sir Reginald's expression tightened as he took the slip of paper. He read it quickly, his lips thinning. "Good heavens!" he murmured, then turned to Poirot. "It seems our plans have changed. The village doctor has ordered a quarantine. No one may leave the manor." "Quarantine?" Hastings exclaimed. "What the devil for?" Sir Reginald hesitated, his fingers crumpling the telegram. "A suspected case of something contagious in the village. The doctor insists we remain here until it's resolved. For our safety, you understand." Poirot's eyes narrowed, his head tilting slightly. "And yet, Sir Reginald, You do not seem surprised by this news. Tell me, what is it that you fear?" The man's smile faltered. "Fear? Why, nothing, Mr. Poirot, merely a precaution. But come, you must meet the others. We are a small party, but eclectic." He led them to an adjacent parlour where a handful of guests stood in uneasy clusters. A young woman with auburn hair and a sharp gaze, Miss Clara Beaumont, introduced as Sir Reginald's niece, offered a polite nod. Beside her, a burly man with a military bearing, Colonel Marcus Drayton, grunted a greeting. A nervous-looking couple, Mr. and Mrs. Leonard Vale, hovered near the fireplace, whispering to each other. And in a corner, a gaunt figure in black, Dr. Evelyn Hartley, watched the room with the intensity of a hawk. "Charming company," Hastings whispered to Poirot. "But something's off. They're all on edge." "Précisément," Poirot murmured, "and it is for us to discover why. The quarantine, mon ami, is no mere coincidence. There is a secret here, and Hercule Poirot will uncover it." As the rain continued to lash the windows, a distant clock chimed, and Poirot's gaze lingered on the guests. The game, he knew, had already begun. Chapter 2. The Guests Assemble. The parlour of Ashford Manor glowed under the soft flicker of a chandelier, its crystal prisms casting fractured light across the room. Hercule Poirot stood near the hearth, his small, neat figure a stark contrast to the grandeur around him. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, moved from face to face, cataloguing every gesture, every glance. Captain Hastings, ever the loyal shadow, lingered at his side, nursing a glass of port and trying to make sense of the peculiar assembly. "Quite a mixed bag, eh, Poirot?" Hastings whispered. "I say that Colonel Drayton looks like he'd rather be storming a trench than sipping tea here." Poirot's lips twitched beneath his meticulously groomed moustache. "Observe, Hastings. The Colonel's posture, it is rigid, yes, but his hands, they tremble slightly. A man of action, perhaps, but one who carries a burden. And the others, they too have their stories." Sir Reginald Ashford clapped his hands, drawing the room's attention. "My dear guests," he began, his voice a touch too jovial, "since we are to be confined together, let us make the best of it. Allow me to formally introduce our company." He gestured first to the young woman with auburn hair, whose emerald eyes sparkled with a mix of defiance and curiosity. "My niece, Miss Clara Beaumont, a writer of some repute, though she insists on those dreadful modern novels. Clara, do behave yourself." Clara inclined her head, her smile sharp as a blade. "Uncle, you invited me for my charm, not my obedience." Her voice was light, but Poirot noted the way her fingers tightened around her glass, betraying a flicker of unease. Next, Sir Reginald turned to the burly man in a tweed suit, his face weathered by years of sun and command. "Colonel Marcus Drayton, late of the Indian Army, a hero of the Raj, and a man who knows more about the world than most of us combined." The colonel gave a curt nod, his jaw tight. "Pleasure," he grunted, though his eyes darted toward the door, as if measuring the distance to freedom. Poirot's gaze lingered on the man's calloused hands, one of which bore a faint scar across. "The knuckles. Then we have Mr. and Mrs. Leonard Vale," Sir Reginald continued, indicating the nervous couple near the fireplace. Mr. Vale, a thin man with wire-rimmed spectacles and a perpetually furrowed brow, managed a weak smile. His wife, a plump woman with anxious eyes, clung to his arm as if it were a lifeline. "Leonard is my solicitor, and dear Margaret keeps him in line, don't you, my dear?" "Oh, Sir Reginald, you do tease," Mrs. Vale said, her laugh brittle. Mr. Vale adjusted his spectacles, saying nothing, but Poirot noted the way his fingers twitched, as if itching to correct some unseen error. Finally, Sir Reginald gestured to the figure in black, who stood apart, her angular features softened only slightly by the lamplight. "Dr. Evelyn Hartley, our esteemed physician. She's been studying some frightfully clever things about tropical diseases. We're lucky to have her, especially under these circumstances." Dr. Hartley's lips curved into a thin smile. "I'm here to observe, Sir Reginald, not to be observed." Her voice was cool, precise, and Poirot's eyes narrowed as he caught the faintest tremor in her hand as she set down her teacup. "And of course," Sir Reginald concluded, "we are honoured by the presence of Monsieur Hercule Poirot, the renowned detective, and his friend Captain Hastings. I trust you'll find our little gathering diverting." "Diverting, oui," Poirot said, bowing slightly. "But I confess, Sir Reginald, I am curious. Why such a gathering? And why the urgency of your invitation?" The room fell silent, the crackle of the fire suddenly loud. Sir Reginald's smile wavered. "A whim, Monsieur Poirot, a desire to bring together interesting minds, and perhaps to seek your counsel on a private matter." Private, yet shared with so many? Poirot's tone was gentle, but his eyes were unrelenting. Before Sir Reginald could respond, Clara Beaumont laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the tension. "Oh, uncle, don't be so mysterious. You've got us all cooped up here like characters in one of my novels. I half expect a body to turn up by morning." The room froze. Mrs. Vale gasped, and Colonel Drayton's hand tightened around his glass. Dr. Hartley's gaze flicked to Clara, then away, as if committing something to memory. "Clara, really?" Sir Reginald snapped, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. Poirot smiled faintly. "Mademoiselle Beaumont, you have a flair for the dramatic. But let us hope your prediction does not come to pass." Hastings leaned closer to Poirot. "She's a firecracker, that one. But something's not right here. Did you see how they all reacted?" "Oui, mon ami," Poirot murmured. "They are like actors on a stage, each playing a part. But what is the script, I wonder? And who is the director?" As the guests dispersed to their rooms for the night, the rain continued its assault on the manor's walls. Poirot lingered by the fire, his mind already turning over the puzzle. The quarantine, the eclectic guests, Sir Reginald's evasions. There was a thread connecting them, invisible but undeniable, and Hercule Poirot would find it. Chapter 3. The First Alarm. The dining room of Ashford Manor was a study in opulence, its long mahogany table gleaming under the soft glow of candelabras. The storm outside raged on, rattling the leaded windows, but within the guests sat in uneasy civility, their plates piled with pheasant and roasted vegetables. Hercule Poirot, seated near the head of the table, ate sparingly, his attention fixed not on the meal, but on the faces around him. Captain Hastings opposite was less restrained, tucking into his food with enthusiasm, but casting curious glances at the company. "Excellent wine, Sir Reginald," Hastings said, raising his glass, "though I must say, This quarantine business puts a damper on the evening." Sir Reginald at the table's head forced a smile. "We must make do, Captain. The doctor's orders are clear. No one leaves until the village is deemed safe." Dr. Evelyn Hartley, seated across from Poirot, set down her fork with deliberate care. "A sensible precaution," she said, her voice cool. "Contagions are unpredictable. We wouldn't want to risk spreading whatever it is." Poirot's eyes flickered to her. "And yet, Doctor, you seem remarkably unperturbed. Most would find such isolation unsettling." Dr. Hartley met his gaze, unflinching. "I've seen worse in the tropics, Monsieur Poirot. A few days in a manor is hardly a hardship." Clara Beaumont, twirling her wineglass, laughed softly. "Oh, come now, Dr. Hartley. It's not the quarantine that's unsettling, it's the company. We're all strangers, aren't we? Except for Uncle, of course, who seems to know more than he's letting on." Sir Reginald's fork paused mid-air, and a flush crept up his neck. "Clara, that's enough. You'll give our guests the wrong impression." "Will I?" Clara's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Or perhaps I'm the only one saying what everyone's thinking." Colonel Drayton, who had been silent, cleared his throat. "Miss Beaumont, you do well to hold your tongue. Idle speculation stirs trouble." "Trouble?" Clara leaned forward, undeterred. "Or truth? I wager someone here has a secret they'd rather not share." Mrs. Vale gasped, clutching her husband's arm. "Miss Beaumont, that's a dreadful thing to say. We're all respectable people here, are we?" Clara's smile was razor-sharp. "Even you, Mrs. Vale, with those nervous glances at the door." Mr. Vale adjusted his spectacles, his voice tight. "My wife is merely anxious about the quarantine, as we all should be." Poirot's fingers tapped lightly on the table, a rhythm only he understood. "Mademoiselle Beaumont has a point, non? In a house such as this, secrets are like shadows. They follow us everywhere." Before anyone could respond, a sharp clatter echoed through the room. The butler, Jenkins, had dropped a silver tray, his face ashen. All eyes turned to him as he bent to retrieve it, his hands trembling. "Jenkins, what's the matter?" "Sir," Reginald demanded. "Forgive me, sir," Jenkins stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. This was under the tray." He held up a small folded piece of paper, its edges creased as if hastily stuffed there. Sir Reginald took it, his brow furrowing as he unfolded it. His eyes scanned the contents, and for a moment his composure slipped. "Good Lord," he muttered. "What is it?" Colonel Drayton barked, his military instinct kicking in. Sir Reginald hesitated, then passed the note to Poirot. "Monsieur Poirot, perhaps you should see this." Poirot adjusted his pince-nez and read aloud, his voice calm but commanding attention. "Beware the one who hides in plain sight. The truth will not stay buried." A collective intake of breath filled the room. Mrs. Vale whimpered, and Mr. Vale's spectacles slipped down his nose. Clara's smile vanished, replaced by a flicker of unease. Dr. Hartley's expression remained unreadable, though her fingers tightened around her napkin. Colonel Drayton's scar seemed to pulse as he clenched his jaw. "Preposterous," the colonel growled. "Some childish prank." "Perhaps," Poirot said, folding the note with care. "But a prank requires a purpose, Colonel, and this is no idle jest. Tell me, Sir Reginald, have you received such a message before?" Sir Reginald shook his head, but his eyes darted to Clara, then away. Never! It's absurd. Someone's idea of a joke, or a warning, Poirot murmured. He turned to Jenkins, who stood rigid by the door. You found this under the tray, oui? And where was the tray before you brought it here? In the kitchen, sir, Jenkins replied. It was prepared for the dessert course. I swear I didn't see the note until it fell. Poirot nodded, his mind already at work. Very well. We shall dine, and we shall converse. But rest assured, mes amis, Hercule Poirot does not ignore a warning. The little grey cells, they are alert. As the meal resumed, the atmosphere grew heavier, the clink of cutlery sounding like accusations. Hastings leaned toward Poirot, whispering, That note's got them rattled. Think it's genuine. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Genuine or not, mon ami, it has revealed one truth. Someone in this room is afraid. And fear, Hastings, is the first step toward betrayal. Outside the storm howled, as if echoing the unease within Ashford Manor. The first alarm had sounded, and Poirot knew it would not be the last. Chapter 4. The Locked Room. The storm had not relented by morning, its relentless drumming against Ashford Manor's walls creating a restless night for all. Hercule Poirot, however, appeared as composed as ever, his morning attire impeccable as he sipped coffee in the breakfast-room. Captain Hastings, less resilient to the lack of sleep, stifled a yawn and muttered about the dreary weather. "Poirot," Hastings said, buttering a piece of toast, "that note last night, it's got everyone on edge. Did you see Mrs. Vale's face? Looked like she'd seen a ghost." "Oui, mon ami," Poirot replied, his eyes scanning the room where only a few guests had gathered. "Fear reveals much, but it is not the note alone that troubles them. There is something deeper, a secret they guard." Before Hastings could respond, a piercing scream shattered the morning's quiet. It came from upstairs, sharp and panicked, followed by a thud. Poirot was on his feet in an instant, his small frame moving with surprising speed. Hastings followed, nearly knocking over his chair. The scream had come from the second floor, where Clara Beaumont stood in the corridor, her hands pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. Beside her, Jenkins, the butler, was fumbling with a ring of keys, his face pale as chalk. "What's happened?" Hastings demanded. Clara pointed to a heavy oak door at the end of the hall. It's Mr. Vale. I heard a noise, and then, oh God, the door's locked and he's not answering." Poirot's expression hardened. "Jenkins, open the door! Vite, vite!" The butler's hands shook as he tried key after key, finally finding one that turned the lock. The ouverture, Bridiot, creaked open, revealing a dimly lit bedroom. Leonard Vale lay sprawled across the floor, his spectacles askew, his face frozen in a grimace of shock. A small table was overturned beside him. A glass of water spilled across the rug. The room's single window was bolted shut, the curtains undisturbed. Mrs. Vale, arriving at the threshold, let out a wail and collapsed into Clara's arms. "Leonard! Oh, no, no, no!" Poirot knelt beside the body, his gloved fingers carefully examining Vale's face and neck. "No marks of violence," he murmured. "No blood, no wounds. And yet he is most certainly dead." Hastings, peering over Poirot's shoulder, frowned. Heart attack, perhaps? The man was a bundle of nerves. Perhaps, Poirot said, but his tone suggested doubt. He rose, his eyes sweeping the room. The door was locked from the inside, oui? And the window, it is bolted. No one could have entered or left. Colonel Drayton, who had joined the growing crowd in the corridor, snorted. Sounds like natural causes to me. Man's heart gave out, that's all. Dr. Evelyn Hartley pushed past the colonel, her medical bag in hand. "Let me examine him," she said briskly. She knelt beside Vale, checking his pulse and inspecting his eyes. After a moment she looked up, her face grim. No obvious cause of death. No signs of a heart attack or stroke. I'd need to perform a post-mortem to be certain, but something's not right. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Précisément, doctor. And what is not right is often the key to what is hidden. Tell me, was Mr. Vale in good health? Mrs. Vale, sobbing quietly, shook her head. He was anxious, always anxious, but healthy, yes. He saw a doctor in London just last month. Poirot turned to Jenkins. You heard nothing last night? No. Cries, no footsteps. Nothing, sir, Jenkins replied, his voice unsteady. The storm was loud, but I was in the servants' quarters. I swear, I heard nothing. Clara, regaining her composure, fixed Poirot with a sharp look. This is no coincidence, Monsieur Poirot. That note last night. The truth will not stay buried. And now this. Sir Reginald, who had arrived silently, gripped the doorframe. Clara, enough. We don't know what happened. It could be an accident. An accident in a locked room. Clara's voice was scathing. Uncle, you're not that naive. Poirot raised a hand for silence. Mes amis, let us not leap to conclusions. The facts, they are our guide. A man is dead in a room locked from within, with no apparent cause. The window is secure, the walls are solid, and yet I, Hercule Poirot, say this. There is no such thing as an impossible crime, only a crime that has not yet been understood. Hastings shivered, despite the warmth of the corridor. You think it's murder, then? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. I think, Hastings, that we must look beyond what we see. The little grey cells, they are already at work. As Dr. Hartley covered Vale's body with a sheet and the guests dispersed in stunned silence, Poirot lingered, his gaze fixed on the overturned table. A single detail caught his eye. A faint smudge on the edge of the glass, barely visible. He said nothing, but his mind churned with possibilities. The locked room was a puzzle, and Hercule Poirot was determined to solve it. Chapter 5. The Quarantine. Titans. The morning after Mr. Vale's death, Ashford Manor seemed to shrink under the weight of its own silence. The storm had abated, but a thick fog now blanketed the estate, cloaking the world beyond in an impenetrable shroud. Hercule Poirot stood by a window in the library, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the swirling mist. Captain Hastings paced nearby, his agitation palpable. "Dash it all, Poirot," Hastings said, running a hand through his hair. "A man dead in a locked room, and now we're stuck here like rats in a trap. This quarantine business is getting worse by the hour." Poirot turned, his expression serene, but his eyes alight with purpose. "The quarantine, mon ami, is not merely an inconvenience. It is a catalyst. It forces the truth to the surface, like oil rising through water. And the truth about Mr. Vale's death, it is not what it seems." Before Hastings could press further, the library door swung open, and Sir Reginald entered, his face drawn. Behind him trailed Jenkins, the butler, clutching a crumpled telegram. "Monsieur Poirot," Sir Reginald said, his voice strained. "We've had news from the village. It's not good." Poirot took the telegram, his pince-nez glinting as he read it aloud. "Quarantine extended indefinitely. All roads closed. No entry or exit permitted. Dr. Grayson." "Indefinitely?" Hastings exclaimed. "What's this Dr. Grayson playing at? We can't stay here forever." Sir Reginald sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. "It's out of my hands, Captain. The village is in a panic. Rumours of a deadly fever. Grayson insists we remain isolated to prevent its spread." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "And yet, Sir Reginald, you received this telegram. If the manor is truly cut off, how did it arrive?" Sir Reginald hesitated, his fingers twitching. Messenger brought it to the gate before dawn. He left it in the post-box and fled. Jenkins found it this morning. "Curious," Poirot murmured. "A messenger who dares approach but not enter. Tell me, Jenkins, was there anything else in this post-box?" Jenkins shook his head, but his eyes flickered nervously. "Nothing, sir. Just the telegram." Poirot nodded, filing the detail away. "Very well. Let us return to the matter of Mr. Vale. Dr. Hartley, she has examined the body further, oui?" If summoned, Dr. Evelyn Hartley appeared at the door, her black attire stark against the library's warm tones. "I have," she said, her voice clipped. "There's no evidence of poison or trauma, but I found something odd. His pupils were dilated, and there was a faint odour on his breath. Not alcohol, but something chemical. I can't identify it without proper equipment." Poirot's eyebrows rose. "A chemical odour, you say? Most interesting. And the glass of water beside him, did you examine it?" Dr. Hartley nodded. "I sent a sample to the kitchen for safekeeping, but without a laboratory I can't analyse it. The smudge you pointed out, Monsieur Poirot, could be significant, but I've no way to test it here." Clara Beaumont, who had slipped into the room unnoticed, leaned against a bookshelf, her auburn hair catching the light. "So, it's murder then," she said, her tone half mocking, half serious. "I told you, uncle, this isn't a coincidence. That note, and now poor Mr. Vale." "Clara, please," Sir Reginald snapped. "We don't know it's murder. It could be a medical anomaly." Colonel Drayton, entering with a scowl, snorted. "Medical anomaly, my foot. Someone's playing a dangerous game, Ashford, and I don't like being caged with a killer." Mrs. Vale, who had been lingering near the door, let out a sob. "How can you say such things? My Leonard was a good man. He had no enemies." Poirot raised a hand, his voice calm but commanding. "Madame, no man is without enemies, even if he does not know them. But rest assured, Hercule Poirot will find the truth. Let us consider the facts. Mr. Vale died in a locked room, with a chemical odour on his breath and a smudge on a glass. The manor is now sealed, and a warning note speaks of hidden truths. These are not accidents, mes amis. They are threads in a tapestry, and I shall unravel it." Hastings frowned. "But how, Poirot? If the room was locked, how could anyone get to do him in?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "The locked room. It is not a barrier to the truth, Hastings. It is a challenge, and Hercule Poirot does not shy from challenges. He turned to the group, his gaze piercing. I shall require access to Mr. Vale's belongings, and I wish to speak with each of you privately. Secrets, they have a way of surfacing, no? And in this manner, they will not remain buried for long. As the guests exchanged uneasy glances, the fog outside seemed to press closer, sealing Ashford Manor in its ghostly embrace. Poirot's mind raced. The clues, smudge, odour, locked door, forming a pattern only he could see. The quarantine had tightened, and with it, the noose around the truth. Chapter 6. Shadows of the Past. The library of Ashford Manor, with its towering bookshelves and heavy velvet drapes, seemed to absorb the morning's light, casting long shadows across the room. Hercule Poirot sat at a polished oak desk, his notebook open, his pen poised like a conductor's baton. Captain Hastings stood by the window, peering into the fog that still clung to the estate, his restlessness a counterpoint to Poirot's calm precision. "Poirot," Hastings said, turning from the window, "this place feels like a tomb. And, with Vale dead, I can't shake the feeling we're all in over our heads. What's your next move?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The next move, mon ami, is to understand the players. Each guest in this manor carries a past, and the past, it is the key to the present. We shall peel back the layers, Hastings, and see what lies beneath." He had requested private interviews with the guests, and the first to enter was Clara Beaumont, her auburn hair catching the faint light as she settled into a chair. Her smile was guarded, but her eyes held a spark of defiance. "Mademoiselle Beaumont," Poirot began, his voice smooth as velvet. "You are a writer, oui? A creator of stories. Tell me, what story do you live in this manor?" Clara laughed, a sharp sound. "You're a clever one, Monsieur Poirot. I'm here because Uncle Reginald asked me to come. He's family after all, though we've never been close. As for stories, I observe more than I invent." Poirot's pen tapped the notebook. "And what have you observed? You spoke of secrets at dinner. Did you know Mr. Vale well?" Her expression flickered, a shadow passing over her face. "Not, well, he was Uncle's solicitor, always fussing over papers. But I saw him arguing with Colonel Drayton 2 days ago, in the garden. Heated too, something about a debt." Poirot's eyebrows rose. "A debt, you say? Most interesting. And you, mademoiselle, have you debts of your own? Or secrets?" Clara's smile tightened. "Doesn't everyone? But mine are harmless, just a writer's curiosity." Next came Colonel Drayton, his military bearing as stiff as his starched collar. He sat ramrod straight, his scar pulsing faintly as he met Poirot's gaze. "Colonel," Poirot said, "you were in India, oui? A man of discipline and honour. Yet Mademoiselle Beaumont speaks of an argument with Mr. Vale. A debt, perhaps." Drayton's jaw clenched. "That girl talks too much. Vale was meddling in my affairs, asking questions about an old investment. Nothing to do with his death." Poirot leaned forward. "And yet, Colonel, you are not at ease. What is it that troubles you in this manner?" Drayton's eyes flickered to the door. "This place, it reminds me of a posting in Calcutta, a house where things went wrong. I don't like being trapped." Poirot noted the man's unease, but pressed no further, dismissing him with a nod. Mrs. Vale was next, her eyes red from crying, her hands wringing a damp handkerchief. "Madam," Poirot said gently, "your husband was a solicitor, a man of detail. Did he speak of any concerns before his death? A client, perhaps, or a document?" Mrs. Vale shook her head, her voice trembling. "Leonard was always worried, Monsieur Poirot. He said this trip was important, something about Sir Reginald's estate. But he wouldn't tell me more. He kept things from me for my sake." Poirot's gaze softened, but his mind was sharp. "And did you know any of the other guests before this weekend?" Her eyes widened, then dropped. "Only Dr. Hartley, vaguely. We met her at a charity event in London last year. She was intense. Asked Leonard odd questions about his work." Finally, Dr. Evelyn Hartley entered, her black attire as severe as her expression. She sat with the precision of a surgeon, her hands folded in her lap. "Doctor," Poirot said, "you are a woman of science, yet you are here among this curious assembly. What brought you to Ashford Manor?" Dr. Hartley's lips curved faintly. "Sir Reginald invited me to discuss my research on tropical diseases. He's a patron of the sciences, you know, but I suspect he had other reasons." "Such as?" Poirot's voice was deceptively mild. She hesitated, then shrugged. "He's a man who collects people, Monsieur Poirot. Like specimens, I think. He wanted you here for more than a weekend's amusement." Poirot's pen paused. "And Mr. Vale, did you know him well?" Her eyes flickered. "Well enough. He was inquisitive, asked about my work, my travels. Too curious, perhaps." As Dr. Hartley left, Poirot closed his notebook, his mind racing. "Hastings," he said, "do you see the pattern? Each guest is connected, not just to Sir Reginald, but to each other. A debt, a meeting, a question. And Mr. Vale, he was the thread that tied them." Hastings frowned. "But how? And why kill him?" Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "That, mon ami, is the question. But I suspect the answer lies in something they all share. A secret from the past, buried but not forgotten." Outside, the fog thickened, sealing the manor in its embrace. Poirot's little grey cells churned, piecing together the fragments of a puzzle that grew darker with every revelation. Chapter 7. The Second Strike. The afternoon light struggled to penetrate the fog that enveloped Ashford Manor, casting the drawing-room in a muted glow. Hercule Poirot sat in a high-backed chair, his fingers steepled, his eyes moving from one guest to another as they gathered uneasily. Captain Hastings stood by the fireplace, his brow furrowed, sensing the undercurrent of fear that had settled over the group since Mr. Vale's death. "Poirot," Hastings whispered, leaning close, "they're like a pack of wolves, circling each other. That note, Vale's death, and now this cursed fog, it's getting to them." Poirot's lips curved slightly. "Précisément, mon ami. Fear is a great revealer, and today, I suspect, we shall see more of what these wolves hide." Sir Reginald, attempting to maintain order, clapped his hands. "Come, let's not mope. A game of bridge, perhaps, or some music to lift our spirits." Clara Beaumont, lounging on a settee, rolled her eyes. "Music, uncle, when we're trapped here with a possible murderer. I'd rather hear Monsieur Poirot's theories." Colonel Drayton, pacing near the window, snorted. "Theories won't bring Vale back. We need action, not chatter." Mrs. Vale, pale and trembling, clutched a shawl around her shoulders. Please, Colonel, don't say such things. It was an accident. It must have been. Dr. Evelyn Hartley, standing apart, raised an eyebrow. An accident, Mrs. Vale, with a chemical odour and a smudged glass. I'm a scientist, not a sentimentalist. Before the argument could escalate. A loud crash echoed from the hall, followed by a muffled cry. The guests froze, their eyes darting to the door. Poirot was already moving, his small frame darting toward the sound with surprising agility. Hastings followed, revolver in hand, a relic of his military days. In the corridor, they found Jenkins, sprawled on the floor, a shattered vase beside him. The butler's face was contorted in pain, his hands clutching his chest. A small dart, no longer than a matchstick, protruded from his neck. Good heavens! Hastings exclaimed, kneeling beside the man. Jenkins! What happened? Jenkins gasped, his voice weak. Someone in the shadows didn't see. His eyes fluttered shut, and he slumped, unconscious. Dr. Hartley pushed through the crowd, her medical bag already open. Move aside, she snapped, checking Jenkins' pulse. He's alive, but barely. The dart, it's likely poisoned. I need to stabilize him. Poirot's eyes narrowed as he examined the dart, careful not to touch it. A poison, delivered with precision. This is no accident, mes amis. This is the second strike. Clara, her face pale, whispered, First Vale, now Jenkins. Who's next? Sir Reginald, visibly shaken, ran a hand through his white hair. This is madness. Why would anyone attack my butler? Poirot turned to the group, his voice calm, but commanding. A better question, Sir Reginald, is where each of you was when this attack occurred. Let us establish the alibis, no? Colonel Drayton bristled. You're accusing us? I was in the billiard room, alone, practicing shots. Alone, Poirot repeated, his tone neutral. And you, Mademoiselle Beaumont? Clara hesitated, then shrugged. I was in my room, writing. The door was closed, but I heard the crash. Mrs. Vale's voice trembled. I was in the parlour, knitting. I didn't leave until I heard the cry. Dr. Hartley, still tending to Jenkins, spoke without looking up. I was in the study reviewing my notes. I came running when I heard the noise. Poirot's gaze lingered on each of them, his mind cataloguing their words. And you, Sir Reginald? I was in my office, going over accounts, Sir Reginald said quickly. Jenkins brought me tea just before this. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. Most convenient, these solitary activities. Yet someone was in the corridor, unseen, with a dart and a motive. Tell me, Dr. Hartley, this poison, could it be the same as that which killed Mr. Vale? Hartley's hands paused. It's possible. The symptoms, rapid collapse, dilated pupils, are similar, but I'd need to analyze the dart. Poirot turned to Hastings. Mon ami, fetch the glass from Mr. Vale's room and the dart. We shall keep them safe until they can be examined. And Jenkins, he must be watched closely. As Dr. Hartley and a footman carried Jenkins to a guest room, the remaining guests exchanged wary glances. Clara broke the silence, her voice sharp. This is no random attack. Someone in this house is a killer, and they're not done. Colonel Drayton rounded on her. Watch your tongue, girl. You're stirring panic. Or stating the obvious, Clara shot back. Poirot raised a hand. Enough. The truth, it is like a shadow. It moves when the light changes. And I Hercule Poirot shall change the light. Each of you think carefully about what you have seen and heard. The lies they will not hold." As the group dispersed, Hastings leaned close to Poirot. "Their alibis are flimsy, Poirot. Anyone could have slipped into that corridor." "Oui," Poirot murmured, his eyes fixed on the shattered vase. "But the dart, Hastings, it is not a weapon of impulse. It is a weapon of calculation. And that calculation, it began long before we arrived." The fog outside seemed to pulse with menace, as if the manor itself were holding its breath, waiting for the next strike. Chapter 8. The Hidden Passage. The fog outside Ashford Manor had thickened into an impenetrable veil, muffling the world beyond and lending the house an air of suffocating isolation. Inside, the tension was palpable, the guests moving through the halls with the wariness of prey. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the oppressive atmosphere, stood in the corridor where Jenkins had been attacked, his eyes tracing the intricate wood panelling. Captain Hastings hovered nearby, clutching the dart and the glass from Mr. Vale's room, now carefully wrapped in a handkerchief. "Poirot," Hastings said, his voice low, "this dart business is devilish. Whoever's behind it knows their way around poisons and this house. But how could they move so quickly without being seen?" Poirot's fingers tapped a rhythm on his walking stick. "The answer, mon ami, lies in the house itself. A manor, such as this, so old, so grand, it holds secrets in its bones. We must find them." As if in response, a faint creak echoed from the wall behind them. Poirot froze, his head tilting like a bird sensing danger. He pressed his hand against the panel, his fingers probing the carved wood. A soft click sounded, and to Hastings' astonishment, a section of the wall swung inward, revealing a narrow, cobweb-draped passage. "Good Lord!" Hastings exclaimed. "A secret passage! Poirot, you've done it again!" Poirot's smile was modest, but his eyes gleamed. "Not I, Hastings. The house, it speaks to those who listen. Come, let us see where this leads." The passage was cramped, its stone walls damp and cold. Poirot, ever mindful of his polished shoes, stepped carefully, a lantern from the hall casting flickering shadows. Hastings followed, his revolver at the ready. The air smelled of mildew and something faintly metallic, stirring unease in Hastings' chest. The passage wound downward, branching into a labyrinth of tunnels. One led to the library, another to the kitchen, and a third opened near the guest wing, close to Mr. Vale's room. Poirot paused at this last exit, his fingers brushing the dust-covered latch. "Most intriguing," he murmured. "This passage, it connects the vital parts of the manor. The killer, they could move unseen, unheard. The locked room, it is no longer a mystery." Hastings frowned. But who would know about these passages? Only someone familiar with the house, surely. "Précisément," Poirot said, "and that, mon ami, narrows our circle." They returned to the drawing-room, where the guests had gathered, summoned by Poirot's request. Sir Reginald's face paled as Poirot described the discovery. "A secret passage?" he stammered. I had no idea. This house has been in my family for centuries. Such things were common in Elizabethan times, but I never thought, Sir Reginald." Poirot's voice was gentle but cutting. Or perhaps you chose not to mention it. A passage that allows unseen movement. It is a tool for betrayal. Clara Beaumont, perched on a chair, laughed sharply. "Oh, uncle, you've been holding out on us. A secret passage? It's like something out of one of my novels." Colonel Drayton's scar twitched as he glared at her. "This is no laughing matter, Miss Beaumont. If someone used that passage to kill Vale and attack Jenkins, we're dealing with a cunning devil." Mrs. Vale, her eyes red-rimmed, clutched her shawl. "But who? Who would do such a thing? Leonard never harmed anyone." Dr. Evelyn Hartley, standing by the window, turned slowly. "The passage changes everything, Monsieur Poirot. It means anyone could have reached Vale's room, or Jenkins in the corridor. But it also means someone knew the house well enough to use it." Poirot's gaze fixed on her. "A keen observation, Doctor. And you, with your scientific mind, have you explored this manor during your stay? Perhaps in search of inspiration?" Dr. Hartley's lips thinned. "I've no interest in sneaking through passages. My work is in laboratories, not shadows." Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. "Let us consider the alibis once more, in light of this discovery. Colonel Drayton, you were in the billiard room, oui? Yet the passage has an exit nearby. Mademoiselle Beaumont, your room is close to another. And Sir Reginald, your office, it is not far from the kitchen entrance." Sir Reginald bristled. "Are you accusing me, Poirot? In my own house?" "Not accusing, Sir Reginald, observing. The passage, it is a thread in the tapestry, and I shall follow it." Clara leaned forward, her eyes bright with curiosity. "What about the dart? Any progress on that poison?" Poirot's fingers brushed his moustache. "The dart? It is with Dr. Hartley for analysis, though our resources are limited. But the passage, it suggests a plan, a design. The killer, they are not acting on impulse. They are weaving a web, and we are all caught in it." As the guests exchanged uneasy glances, a faint groan came from upstairs. Jenkins, perhaps stirring under Dr. Hartley's care. Poirot's eyes narrowed. "We must speak with Jenkins when he wakes. He saw something, even if he does not yet know it," Hastings whispered. "This passage, Poirot, it's a game-changer. But it also means the killer could strike again, anywhere, any time." "Oui," Poirot murmured, "but they will not catch Hercule Poirot unawares. The passage is a secret revealed, and secrets, mon ami, are the key to this mystery." The fog outside pressed closer, as if conspiring with the manor to keep its secrets. But Poirot's mind was a beacon, cutting through the gloom, determined to expose the truth. Chapter 9. Poirot's Little Grey Cells. The late afternoon light filtered weakly through the fog, casting a pall over Ashford Manor's study, where Hercule, Poirot sat at a small writing desk, his notebook filled with meticulous notes. Captain Hastings paced the room, his restless energy a stark contrast to Poirot's serene focus. The discovery of the secret passage had shifted the dynamics of the house, and the air was thick with suspicion. "Poirot," Hastings said, pausing to rub his temples, "this business is getting murkier by the minute. A locked room, a poisoned dart, a secret passage. How do you make sense of it all? And poor Jenkins, still unconscious. What's your next step?" Poirot's green eyes twinkled as he closed his notebook with a precise snap. "The next step, mon ami, is to think. The little grey cells, they are at work, weaving the threads of this mystery into a pattern. Let us review what we know and what we suspect. Hastings pulled up a chair, his expression eager but baffled. Right then, lay it out for me, old chap. What's the picture so far? Poirot leaned back, his fingers steepled. First, the facts. Mr. Vale, he dies in a locked room with a chemical odour on his breath and a smudged glass of water. No visible wounds, no clear cause. The room, it is accessible by a secret passage, unknown to most, or so they claim. Then Jenkins, he is struck by a poisoned dart in the corridor near another passage entrance. The note, it warns of a hidden truth. And the quarantine, it traps us all like pieces on a chessboard. Hastings nodded, frowning. And the guests, alibis are shaky at best. Anyone could have used that passage to get to Vale or Jenkins. Précisément, Poirot said, but the passage, it is not the only key. Consider the motives. Mr. Vale, he was a solicitor, a man of documents and secrets. Mademoiselle Beaumont spoke of a debt with Colonel Drayton. Mrs. Vale mentioned his work with Sir Reginald's estate. Dr. Hartley, she knew him from a prior meeting, and he asked questions about her work. These connections, they are not random. Hastings's eyes widened. You think Vale stumbled onto something? A secret that got him killed? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. It is possible, but there is more. The dart that struck Jenkins. It is a weapon of precision, not impulse. The poison, it links to the chemical odour in Vale's room. This suggests a single mind, a single plan. Yet the method, why a locked room for Vale, and an open attack for Jenkins? It is as if the killer wishes to confuse us. Hastings rubbed his chin. To throw us off the scent, you mean? But who? Sir Reginald's acting cagey. Clara's too clever by half. Drayton's got a temper. Hartley's too calm. And Mrs. Vale, well, she's a wreck. But that could be an act. Poirot's fingers tapped his notebook. Each has a mask, Hastings. Sir Reginald, he hides behind hospitality, but his fear betrays him. Clara, she plays the provocateur, yet her eyes are watchful. Drayton, his military bravado conceals a wound deeper than his scar. Hartley, her detachment is a shield. And Mrs. Vale, her grief, it is genuine, but perhaps not complete. Hastings leaned forward. You're saying they're all hiding something, even Mrs. Vale? Oui, Poirot said softly. But the question is not what they hide, it is why. The secret passage, it suggests intimacy with the house. Sir Reginald claims ignorance, yet he has lived here for years. Clara, she writes, of intrigues, perhaps she knows more of this manor than she admits. And Dr. Hartley, her knowledge of poisons, it is most convenient, no? Hastings whistled. You're building a case, Poirot, but it's still a jumble. What about that note? The one who hides in plain sight. Any guesses? Poirot's gaze drifted to the window, where the fog pressed against the glass. The note, it is a taunt, Hastings. A challenge to see what is before us. The killer, they are among us, hiding not in shadows, but in their words, their actions. But I, Hercule Poirot, shall see through the disguise. A soft knock interrupted them. Jenkins, pale but upright, stood at the door, supported by Dr. Hartley. Monsieur Poirot, he said weakly, I remember something. Before the dart, I saw a shadow in the corridor. It moved fast towards the library. Poirot's eyes lit up. A shadow, you say? And did it have a form, a silhouette? Jenkins shook his head, wincing. Too quick, sir. But it was someone small, nimble. Not the Colonel, I'd wager. Dr. Hartley's voice was sharp. He needs rest, Monsieur Poirot. This interrogation can wait. Of course, Poirot said, bowing slightly. But your patient, he has given us a piece of the puzzle. Merci, Jenkins. As Dr. Hartley led, Jenkins away, Hastings whispered. A small shadow. That could be Clara, or even Hartley herself, or Sir Reginald, for that matter. Or none of them, Poirot murmured. The shadow, it is another thread. We must follow it, Hastings, and trust the little grey cells to light the way. The fog outside seemed to pulse with secrets, and Poirot's mind churned, the pieces of the mystery slowly aligning. The truth was close, but still shrouded, waiting for the right moment to be unveiled. Chapter 10. The Night of Revelations. The drawing-room of Ashford Manor was a cauldron of tension as night fell, the fog outside pressing against the windows like a living thing. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre of the room, his small frame commanding the attention of the assembled guests. Captain Hastings leaned against the mantelpiece, his eyes darting between the faces lit by the flickering firelight. The air was heavy with unspoken accusations, and Poirot's presence seemed to sharpen the edge of every glance. Mes amis, Poirot began, his voice calm but resonant. We have reached a moment of truth. 2 crimes have been committed in this house. Mr. Vale's death in a locked room, and the attack on Jenkins with a poisoned dart. The secret passage, it has revealed how these acts were possible. But the why, it remains hidden. Tonight, we shall uncover some of these truths. Clara Beaumont, seated on a velvet sofa, leaned forward, her eyes bright with anticipation. About time, Monsieur Poirot. I've been waiting for someone to stir this pot. Colonel Drayton, standing stiffly near the door, snorted. Stir it all you like, Poirot. You'll find nothing but speculation. Mrs. Vale, clutching a handkerchief, whispered, Please, just tell us what happened to my Leonard. Sir Reginald, his face pale, cleared his throat. Let's hear him out. Monsieur Poirot, what have you found? Poirot's gaze swept the room, lingering on each guest. Let us begin with Mr. Vale. He was a solicitor, a man who dealt in secrets, legal secrets, financial secrets. Mademoiselle Beaumont, you spoke of an argument between Mr. Vale and Colonel Drayton. Oui? A debt, you said. Clara nodded, unruffled. I saw them in the garden, 2 days before Vale died. The Colonel was furious. Waving a letter, Vale looked cornered. Drayton's scar twitched as he stepped forward. That's enough, Miss Beaumont. Yes, Vale and I argued. He was pressing me about an old investment, a mining venture in India that went sour years ago. He claimed I owed Sir Reginald money. Utter nonsense. Sir Reginald's eyes widened. A mining venture? Leonard never mentioned this to me. Poirot's eyebrows rose. Curious, non? A solicitor who keeps secrets from his client. And you, Mrs. Vale, did your husband speak of this venture? Mrs. Vale shook her head, her voice trembling. No, but he was worried about something. He said this trip was critical, that he had to settle accounts. Poirot turned to Dr. Hartley, who stood apart, her expression cool. And you, Doctor, knew Mr. Vale from a charity event. He asked questions about your work, oui? Perhaps about poisons?" Dr. Hartley's lips thinned. He was curious about my research on tropical toxins. I thought it odd but harmless. I'm no murderer, Monsieur Poirot. "Perhaps not," Poirot said, his tone mild. "But your knowledge, it is most convenient. The poison in the dart, the chemical odour on Mr. Vale's breath, these suggest a mind versed in such matters." Room erupted in murmurs. Colonel Drayton pointed at Dr. Hartley. "She's the one, then! A doctor with access to poisons, skulking about in those passages." Dr. Hartley's eyes flashed. "And what about you, Colonel? You knew about that mining deal. Maybe you wanted Vale silenced before he exposed you." "Enough, Sir Reginald," shouted, his voice cracking. "This is my house, and I won't have it torn apart by accusations." Poirot raised a hand, silencing the room. "There is more. Jenkins, he saw a shadow before the attack, a small, nimble figure. This rules out the Colonel, perhaps, but not others." His gaze lingered on Clara and Sir Reginald. Clara laughed, though it sounded forced. "Me? I'm a writer, not an assassin. And Uncle, he's too old to be darting through passages." Sir Reginald's face reddened, but before he could speak, a new voice cut through, a weak, rasping one. Jenkins, supported by a footman, stood at the door, his face pale but determined. "Monsieur Poirot, I remembered something else. The shadow, it wore a ring, a gold ring with a red stone." Eyal, eyes turned to Sir Reginald, whose hand instinctively moved to his own ring, a gold band with a ruby glinting in the firelight. He froze, then stammered, "This is absurd. I was in my office when Jenkins was attacked." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Perhaps, Sir Reginald. But the passage connects your office to the corridor, and you, who know this house best, claimed ignorance of its secrets." The room fell silent, the weight of Poirot's words sinking in. Then Clara stood, her voice sharp. "There's something else you're not saying, Uncle. That mining venture. Vale wasn't just your solicitor. He was investigating you, wasn't he? For fraud." Sir Reginald's face drained of colour. "Clara, how dare you?" "It's true," she snapped. "I overheard Vale talking to someone on the telephone before we arrived. He said he had proof, documents that could ruin you." Mrs. Vale gasped, and Colonel Drayton's hand clenched into a fist. Dr. Hartley's expression remained unreadable, but her eyes flicked to Sir Reginald. Poirot's voice cut through the chaos. "A most revealing accusation, mademoiselle. But there is a twist, no? If Mr. Vale had proof of fraud, why was he killed in a locked room? And why was Jenkins attacked? There is another layer to this mystery, one we have not yet uncovered." The guests stared at him. A loud crack sounded from upstairs, a gunshot. Hastings drew his revolver, and the group surged toward the sound, Poirot leading the way. In the guest wing, they found a door ajar, leading to Dr. Hartley's room. On the floor lay a small pistol, its barrel still warm, and a bullet hole marred the wall. But the room was empty. "Where's Hartley?" Hastings demanded. Poirot's eyes narrowed, scanning the room. "She was with us moments ago, yet now she is gone. The passage, perhaps, or something else, something we have not yet seen." The guests exchanged fearful glances, the weight of the new twist settling over them. Poirot's mind raced. the threads of the mystery tightening, but the truth remained just out of reach. Chapter 11. The Final Clue. The air in Ashford Manor was thick with dread as the guests stood in Dr. Hartley's room, staring at the pistol on the floor and the bullet hole in the wall. The fog outside seemed to seep into the house, blurring the edges of reality. Hercule Poirot, his eyes sharp as ever, knelt beside the pistol, careful not to touch it. Captain Hastings, revolver still in hand, scanned the room for any sign of Dr. Hartley, who had vanished moments after the confrontation in the drawing-room. "Poirot!" Hastings whispered, his voice tense. "Where the devil is Hartley? She was with us downstairs, and now this gunshot. Do you think she's been attacked?" Poirot's gaze remained fixed on the pistol, a small silver-plated weapon with an ornate grip. "Non, mon ami," he said softly. "This is no attack. It is a message, or perhaps a misdirection. But Hercule Poirot will not be misled." Clara Beaumont, hovering near the door, crossed her arms. "A message? Monsieur Poirot, this is chaos. First Vale, then Jenkins, and now Hartley's gone with a gunshot in her room. Are we all to be picked off one by one?" Colonel Drayton, his face flushed with anger, growled, "Enough theatrics, Miss Beaumont. If Hartley's run off, she's likely the culprit. That pistol, bet it's hers." Sir Reginald, visibly shaken, wrung his hands. "This is my fault. I brought you all here, and now this madness." Mrs. Vale, trembling beside Clara, whispered, "Please, Monsieur Poirot, find out who's doing this. I can't bear another loss." Poirot rose, his movements precise. "Calm yourselves, mes amis. The truth, it is near. But we must find Dr. Hartley, and we must examine this room. Hastings, guard the pistol. No one touches it until I return." He stepped into the corridor, his eyes scanning the walls for the secret passage's entrance. Finding the hidden latch, he opened it, revealing the dark, narrow tunnel. "The passage, it is the key," he murmured. "Let us see where it leads us now." With Hastings and Clara following, Poirot navigated, the passage its damp walls echoing their footsteps. The tunnel branched toward the guest wing, but a faint scuff mark on the floor caught Poirot's eye. A smudge of chalk, barely visible in the lantern's light. He knelt, his fingers brushing the mark. "Chalk," he said, his voice low. "Most curious. This is not the dust of neglect. Someone has marked this path, and recently." Clara frowned. Chalk, like a schoolroom. Why would anyone mark a secret passage? Poirot's eyes gleamed. "To guide, mademoiselle, or to mislead? Come, we search further." The passage ended at a small alcove near the library, where a dusty crate held old household records. Poirot's fingers traced the crate's edge, pausing at a loose board. He pried it open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a small vial, half filled with a colourless liquid, and a folded letter sealed with wax. "The final clue," Poirot said, his voice triumphant. He carefully lifted the vial, sniffing it cautiously. A chemical odour, faint but unmistakable, the same as on Mr. Vale's breath, I wager. Hastings's eyes widened. "Poison, then? And the letter? What's in it?" Poirot broke the seal and unfolded the paper, his pince-nez glinting as he read silently. His expression hardened. "It is a confession of sorts. Not to murder, but to knowledge. It speaks of a betrayal, a deal gone wrong, and a name that ties this house to the past. Clara leaned closer, her voice urgent. Whose name, Monsieur Poirot? Don't keep us in suspense. Poirot folded the letter, slipping it into his pocket. Not yet, mademoiselle. The name, it is a spark that could ignite this house. We must find Dr. Hartley, for she is either the hunter or the hunted. As they returned to the drawing-room, Dr. Hartley appeared, her face pale but composed, her black dress slightly dishevelled. I heard the shot, she said, her voice steady. I was in the garden, checking the post-box for any new telegrams. I didn't want to alarm anyone. Colonel Drayton scoffed. Convenient, Doctor. A gunshot in your room and you're nowhere to be found. Poirot's gaze locked onto her. Dr. Hartley, your absence is noted, but your presence now is most fortunate. Tell me, do you recognize this? He held up the vial, watching her reaction. Her eyes flickered, but she shook her head. No, it could be any number of substances. I'd need to test it. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. The vial, the letter, the chalk mark, they are pieces of the puzzle. The killer, they are clever, but they have made a mistake, and that mistake, it will lead us to the truth. Hastings whispered, You're close, aren't you, Poirot? You've got the scent. Oui, mon ami, Poirot murmured. The little grey cells, they are alight. The final act approaches, and the curtain will rise on the truth. The fog outside seemed to tighten its grip on the manor, but Poirot's resolve was unshaken. The final clue had shifted the game, and he was ready to play his hand. Chapter 12. The Quarantine Secret Unveiled. The drawing-room of Ashford Manor was a stage set for revelation, its heavy curtains drawn against the fog that clung to the estate like a shroud. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his small, immaculate figure radiating authority. The guests, Sir Reginald Ashford, Clara Beaumont, Colonel Marcus Drayton, Mrs. Margaret Vale, and Dr. Evelyn Hartley, sat in a tense semicircle, their faces a mix of fear, defiance, and curiosity. Captain Hastings stood by the fireplace, his revolver discreetly tucked away, his eyes fixed on Poirot. The air crackled with anticipation. Mes amis, Poirot began, his voice steady and resonant, we have endured a storm of secrets in this house. 2 crimes, a murder and an attempted murder, have torn the veil of civility. Mr. Vale, dead in a locked room. Jenkins, struck by a poisoned dart. A cryptic note, a secret passage, a vial of poison, and a letter. Tonight, Hercule Poirot will reveal the truth, the killer, the motive, and the secret that binds this manor. Clara Beaumont leaned forward, her auburn hair glinting in the firelight. Get on with it, Monsieur Poirot. Who's the murderer? Poirot's eyes twinkled. Patience, mademoiselle. The truth, it is a tapestry, and we must weave the threads carefully. Let us begin with Mr. Vale's death. He paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. Mr. Vale died in a locked room, with a chemical odour on his breath and a smudged glass of water. The secret passage, it explained how the killer entered and left. But the method, poison, delivered in the water, required knowledge and opportunity. The vial we found, it matches the odour. A rare toxin, perhaps, from Dr. Hartley's research. Dr. Hartley's lips thinned. I told you, I don't recognize that vial. I'm no killer. Poirot nodded. Perhaps not, but your knowledge, it is significant. Let us move to Jenkins, attacked with a poisoned dart. A shadow, small and nimble, wearing a ring with a red stone. Suspicion fell on Sir Reginald, whose ring matches the description. Sir Reginald's face reddened. Preposterous! I was in my office. Oui, Poirot said, but the passage connects your office to the corridor. And yet I do not believe you are the killer. The ring, it is a clue, but also a deception. Colonel Drayton snorted. Deception! This is all smoke and mirrors, Poirot. Get to the point. Poirot's gaze sharpened. The point, Colonel, is motive. Mr. Vale was a solicitor, investigating a mining venture in India, a venture that failed, leaving debts and accusations of fraud. You, Colonel, argued with him about it. Sir Reginald, you were implicated. Clara, you overheard Vale's concerns. Mrs. Vale, you knew he was worried. And Dr. Hartley, he questioned your work. But there is more. A letter found in the passage speaking of betrayal and a name from the past. He produced the letter, holding it aloft. This letter, it names a man, Edward Ashford, Sir Reginald's late brother. He was involved in the mining venture, and his death, years ago, was no accident. It was murder, covered up as a fever in India. Mr. Vale, he uncovered this truth. Mrs. Vale gasped, clutching her handkerchief. Leonard, he never told me. Because he wished to protect you, Poirot said gently. But someone else knew. Someone who feared exposure. The note, beware the one who hides in plain sight. It was not a warning to us, but to the killer, from an accomplice who grew uneasy. Clara's eyes widened. An accomplice? You mean there's more than one? Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Oui, mademoiselle. The killer acted alone indeed, but not in knowledge. Let us consider the final clue. The gunshot in Dr. Hartley's room. She was absent, claiming to be in the garden. But the pistol, it was hers, oui? Dr. Hartley nodded, her face pale. It was stolen from my bag. I swear it. I believe you, Poirot said. The gunshot was a distraction, meant to cast suspicion on you. But it revealed the killer's mistake. The chalk mark in the passage, it was not to guide, but to mark a hiding place for the vial and letter. And who in this house carries chalk? Turned to Clara, his gaze piercing. Mademoiselle Beaumont, you are a writer. You use chalk to outline your plots on a board in your room. I saw it myself when I passed your door. Clara laughed, but it was strained. Chalk, that's your evidence. Half the world uses chalk. Perhaps, Poirot said, but only one person in this house had the motive, the opportunity, and the cunning to kill Mr. Vale and attack Jenkins. You, mademoiselle, knew of your uncle's past, Edward's murder, the fraud. You overheard Vale's call, learned he had proof. You used the passage to poison his water, knowing it would look like a heart attack. You attacked Jenkins, fearing he saw you in the passage. And the note, you wrote it to taunt your uncle, to unsettle him. Sir Reginald staggered to his feet. Clara? No, it can't be. She's my niece. Clara's face hardened, her defiance crumbling. You're wrong, Poirot. I didn't. Poirot raised a hand. The twist, mademoiselle, is this. You are not Sir Reginald's niece. The letter reveals the truth. You are Edward Ashford's daughter, born in secret, raised by another family. You came here not for a weekend, but for revenge. You blamed Sir Reginald for your father's death, and when Vale threatened to expose the truth, you acted. The room was silent, the guests frozen. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. He let my father die, covered it up to save his fortune. I wanted justice. Poirot's expression softened. Justice, perhaps, but murder is not justice. You poisoned Vale, and you tried to silence Jenkins. The ring, it was your father's, taken from his effects, not Sir Reginald's. Clara collapsed into her chair, sobbing. I only wanted the truth to come out. Sister Reginald's voice was hoarse. Clara, my God, I didn't know. Poirot turned to the others. The quarantine, it was a fiction, orchestrated by Clara's ally in the village, a doctor she bribed to keep us here, to trap Sir Reginald. Dr. Hartley, your absence during the gunshot. You were checking for telegrams, but also destroying Clara's instructions to her accomplice. Dr. Hartley nodded, shamefaced. I suspected her, but I couldn't prove it. I found her notes in the postbox. Hastings whistled. By Jove, Poirot, you've done it again. But how did you know? Poirot's smile was modest. The little grey cells, mon ami. They see what others miss. The chalk, the letter, the ring. The truth, it hides in plain sight. As Clara was led away, the fog began to lift, as if the manor itself sighed in relief. Poirot stood by the window, watching. The first rays of light break through. The quarantine was over, and the secret was unveiled, leaving only the echoes of justice in its wake. Epilogue. The light beyond the fog. The morning sun pierced the last remnants of fog around Ashford Manor, casting golden rays across the manicured lawns. Hercule Poirot stood on the terrace, his overcoat immaculate despite the damp air, his moustache perfectly waxed. Captain Hastings beside him puffed on a cigarette, his face a mix of relief and bewilderment as they awaited the motor car to take them back to London. Well, Poirot, Hastings said, exhaling a cloud of smoke, you've done it again. Unravelled a tangle of lies and secrets in record time. But I must say, Clara as Edward's daughter, that was a twist I didn't see coming. Poirot's green eyes twinkled. Mon ami, the truth, it is like a diamond, hidden in the rough, but revealed by careful cuts. Clara's motive was not greed, but pain. A daughter's love for a father she never knew. It drove her to madness. Hastings shook his head. Poor girl, and Sir Reginald covering up his brother's murder all those years ago. Do you think he'll face justice? Poirot's expression grew sombre. The law, it will decide his fate. But the greater punishment, Hastings, is to live with the guilt of a brother lost and a niece turned to vengeance. For Sir Reginald, the quarantine of the heart will not end. The motor car rumbled up the drive, and the remaining guests, Mrs. Vale, Colonel Drayton, and Dr. Hartley, emerged from the manor, their faces drawn but relieved. Mrs. Vale clutched a small photograph of her husband, her eyes red but resolute. Colonel Drayton gave Poirot a curt nod, his scar less prominent in the sunlight. Dr. Hartley, her medical bag in hand, offered a faint smile. Monsieur Poirot, she said, I underestimated you. Your mind, it's sharper than any scalpel. Poirot bowed slightly. A compliment from a scientist, Doctor, is most valued. But tell me, will you continue your research? knowing the dangers it attracts. Dr. Hartley's smile tightened. Knowledge is worth the risk, but I'll be more careful about the company I keep. As the guests boarded the car, Hastings turned to Poirot. What about that fake quarantine? Clara's accomplice in the village. Will he face the music? Oui, Poirot said, adjusting his hat. The police have been informed. The doctor, he was a pawn, swayed by Clara's charm and a promise of funds. The truth, it has a way of escaping even the tightest quarantine. The car pulled away, leaving Poirot and Hastings alone on the terrace. The manor loomed behind them, its secrets laid bare, but its shadows lingering. Hastings flicked his cigarette into the gravel. Back to London, then? A quiet cup of tea and no more mysteries for a while, I hope. Poirot's laugh was soft but knowing. Quiet, mon ami. For Hercule Poirot, there is no such thing. The little grey cells, they are always ready for the next puzzle. As they climbed into their own car, the sun broke fully through the clouds, illuminating the road ahead. Ashford Manor faded into the distance, its quarantine lifted, but the echoes of its secrets would linger in Poirot's mind, a reminder that even in the darkest fog, the truth could be found.